Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of HSP TV. I am your host, Barbara, and today I am joined by the beautiful Bevin Niemann Cortez. And the topic that we want to be talking about today is social media savviness for tender-hearted souls. And you might think when you hear this, what does that mean? Well, stay tuned and you will find out. Welcome, Bevin. I'm so happy that you're here. I've been looking forward to this talk.
Thank you, Barbara. I'm just so excited about this topic. I know both you and I have a lot of experience in this realm, and probably a lot of the HSPs and empaths who are tuning in have gone out there in the public realm and have a few things to say about that.
Probably. So if what we are about to talk about resonates deeply with you and you feel like you want to share your story, please do. That's what the comment section is for. And for those of you that are intrigued by the title but have absolutely no idea what to imagine with it or what we are going to talk about, how can we explain this to them, Bevin?
Yeah, I think, as you and I were sort of brainstorming, what would be really helpful for sensitive people like us is to talk about how prevalent social media is in our society now across the globe. And it has been both like a blessing and a curse, right?
Yes.
So I'm sure all of us have had an experience where we logged onto a particular platform, we were able to connect with friends or family, or even meet other people that maybe we wouldn't have been able to meet in our local area. As a matter of fact, that's how you and I got connected, as we began to follow each other because we do aligned work and developed this respect and camaraderie. And here we are talking about this. So social media can be really amazing in those aspects. It can be very democratizing, right? It gives, just the average everyday person a voice, and anyone can write or do a video or put, things out there. And really, align with other people who are passionate about particular causes. And then there's sort of the shadow side too, right, of social media. Not sort of, it's really big, the shadow side. And people have used it for many reasons. We all heard of trolling and haters. I think this is one of the reasons a lot of empaths and HSPs get nervous about putting themselves out in the public sphere because they're worried, if I express my opinion about X, Y, or Z, who's going to come at me, who's going to have something to say. And I know you and I are going to talk specifically about being sensitive women and sensitive entrepreneurs in that space as well. So I think today we're just going to really dive in deep and really talk about and chat about our experiences and invite some interesting insights, I think, to come up. Like, how do we actually protect ourselves online?
Mm-hmm.
How are we using our sense of discernment? And also, how are we opening ourselves and allowing ourselves to be vulnerable and be connected? So both of those things can be true simultaneously.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And what you were saying about the shadow side, I think that's inherent to a particular trait that we have. And that's usually that we want to please people and that we find it extremely important that other people think highly of us and that other people like us and that other people value us and see us as a good person. So a lot of these factors play a role into how we dare express ourselves because we are simultaneously worried about how we come across and what other people might think about us and what we're saying, and if that will impact our social status, our friendships, or maybe the relationship with your parents, if you want to share like a trauma or abuse story about your past, because that is how you help other people go through similar things. So you feel then I need to share my story so that people understand that I really understand what they're going through and they can relate and they understand that I can sympathize and that I am the right person to help, right? That's usually why we want to share our story. But how does that then affect our parents when they read it? And how will other people that don't know me think about me when they read it? Will they perceive me as weak, or will they think lesser of me? And what influence will that have on my ability to get clients, attract clients, but also in regards to friendships? Then might people think less of me, or might people, look down on me, or thinking, oh, girl, you don't share stuff like that.
Mhm. Yeah, I can completely relate to what you're saying because, I have over the years become more and more politically open online, talking about social justice. And there were many times when before I press, publish, I thought to myself, okay, who's going to see this? What's going to happen? Sometimes there was a lot of really positive feedback. Several times I received really nasty, racist feedback. There's all kinds of things. And so, you also have to worry a little bit about who's contacting you, who's friend requesting you, who's coming into your direct messages, and what is their intention, and as much as we like to be open-hearted and we want to think the best of people, and I think a lot of HSPs and empaths kind of fall into that category. That's what you were talking about, our tendency to people please, or to maybe even see people in sort of an illusionary light. And then when they come across, as people do in all different ways, we get really upset. I've been in that space, definitely, for sure. I've had strange people, strange men come into my private messages, asking for money, being very sexual, just a lot of different things, and then I've had people who are really upset because I moved from the United States to Mexico, or I married a Mexican American man, and just, being able to put yourself out there is wonderful. Like, we want to be more and more authentic, right? That's the goal with the whole spiritual path, is to be more and more authentic, especially as leaders, entrepreneurs. Like, we get to actually show up and be an example for that. And also, you will come across people who don't like who you are and are willing to be really nasty or hateful, or even feel threatening in that. So, it's this double-edged sword.
Yes, most definitely. It definitely is. And I recognize the things that you're sharing. I've also had on all social medias, to be honest, messages from men that wanted more than was even possible, that were very disrespectful. The amount of deep pictures that I've gotten is huge. And it even moved towards my emails. And lately it's been going on WhatsApp. So that makes it sometimes very difficult to stand in the limelight. And in the end, it's all around being yourself. Really being yourself, being really comfortable in your skin. And yes, sometimes that draws out the crazies. And you need to be prepared for that. And you need definitely, especially apparently, as an attractive woman, they don't care if you're single, yes or no. They don't care if you're married. They just care mostly about themselves and just want to share whatever it is that they want to share, regardless of how appropriate or inappropriate it might be. And when you are comfortable in your own skin and you feel really great in what you're doing, then of course you still register it, but it doesn't got so deep anymore. And there was a time where I felt that I needed to set them straight. I needed to tell what was wrong with their message, and what I really thought about it, or some type of response. And that's a very natural thing, right? Because they're invading your privacy, they're doing things that are not nice, regardless if you're in a relationship or no. It's not something that I find belongs on social media. And if you do find someone that you're very interested in, you can also be respectful about it. And that's what's lacking in most of these attempts. But it's about not responding to it at all at the moment for me, because I discovered that even setting them straight or any type of response at all was taking away energy from things that I would rather spend on something else, energy that I'd rather spend on something else. So nowadays I just block them, and I think, well, okay, another lesson learned. But it's a process, right? You go through stages also in this, and then this is just the men part that are assaulting you, speak of it that way. We haven't even talked about the number of people that think that it's okay to start selling you as soon as you accept their request.
Yeah. They're like, boom, hey, I've got this great thing. Here's the link. Buy from me. You join my group, whatever. And I get what you're going towards here, Barbara, is that, especially as HSPs, everything for us is about trust and relationship and knowing that, you're not out to use me for something. There's absolutely nothing wrong with anyone selling their work online. I mean, that's a huge industry. You and I are both a part of being online entrepreneurs. There's a way that you develop that trust and that respect, and you do it with people's consent. And you do it because people come to you and they're excited to see what you have to offer, not because you're pushing yourself out there. And there's a lot of mainstream sales advice that tells people to do that. It's like a numbers game, right? If you just, DM 100 people, maybe one person will buy from you. And it's like, whoa, that's a lot of energy and not what I'm going to do and not what I want to receive either. No. It doesn't feel respectful. And so, there's all these places where we're looking at boundaries. And I loved how you talked about, like, in the beginning, you were like trying to tell them, like, why is this bad? Or why is this racist? Or why is this sexist? Or blah, blah, blah. And then you realize this is a lot of energy because people are not going to change who they are just because you tell them something. Like, transformational change takes time, and it probably takes an aha moment. It probably takes them getting in trouble, like whatever that might be. So I don't think that I'm going to be able to do that with someone who doesn't really care. So like you, it's almost like I'm open-hearted out there, and I also have a little bit of a shield around my heart. And when they come in and they do it, I go, there's another one, and I click block. And then I move on with my day, and I don't care, because I don't know this person, not my friend. They're not my family member. Like, it's like, I just go, I don't care. And, we can come to that place. I know a lot of HSPs are probably going, what?
How?
Really, we really can get to a place where, like, we're deciding, like, this is going to take my energy and this is not going to take my emotional energy. And, we get to choose that. We get to choose that. Yes, we feel everything more deeply. Yes, am I disturbed by it? I'm like, oh, here I go again. Wouldn't it be lovely if everyone just, had manners and was considerate online? How awesome would that be? But it's not the case. And when you struck upon, you need to come to expect it. If you're going to be out there, if you're going to have any kind of public presence, even if it's just to connect with other people, even if you're not running a business, you need to expect that there will be some things that will be said or done or initiated that they don't feel good to you. And then it doesn't feel so shocking. It doesn't feel quite so shocking for us. Exactly. But I do want to tell a quick story, if I may. Yes. Because this is really funny. So I had this, pretty much hardcore, I don't talk to any men on Facebook, on anything, right? That was my rule. So in 2020, I was posting on my business site, my business page, and I was really talking a lot about politics. There was a lot going on in the United States. I was very open, vocal, active. And one day, the algorithm gods showed my page to who would become my future husband. And he saw it and he was like, wow, she's kind of cool. And she's into the same thing. And she's in the activist, mindset. And he started following me. And then he commented a couple of my posts. And I was like, who's this person? At the time, he didn't even have a profile picture because he's definitely a sensitive person that didn't want to be on social media at all. But he got on there for his own business. And then he ended up crossing paths with me. And, now he's really active in it. And then I was like, he's kind of interesting and he's making interesting comments. So I went into the DMs and I was like, hey, I was just wondering what you meant by such and such, in that defensive mode, I think, because I had had so many different people contact me. And he wrote this beautiful reply. And I was like, I think I might like to get to know him a little bit more. And we began messaging back and forth. And then we began to video chat. And then I flew to meet him because we lived 10 hours apart. And 2 years later, we were married at the base of the mountains in New Mexico in the United States. So social media can be really, there can be this deep shadow side and there's a darkness, and it brings out kind of the anonymity that people get behind their keyboard, right? It can also be really beautiful, and it can bring us connections that we didn't expect. So neither one of us were looking for a spouse. We were just out there doing our thing, and here it came. So I just want to make the point that it can be both of those things, and this is where discernment, and we took it very slow, and I was very cautious, and and he was cautious, and so I think that's really important. That's a really important message, not to just believe anything that comes along. Because I definitely dealt with a few scams where they were trying to get money out of me. But it can actually be good as well. And I have so many people around the world I've had a chance to meet that I never would have connected with. Was it not for various social media platforms? Like we exchange, here's a cool resource, or here's this, or we've had Zoom calls, and it's just been incredible. Because I think for us HSPs and empaths, it can be a little more difficult to meet other people like ourselves. So it brings us together. We're like, oh, I think that person might be kind of like me. They might be perceiving the world like me. They might be kind of tuned in like me, or intuitive like me, just based on what they wrote there. And I was like, oh, okay, you want to chat. And then people chat and they build friendships, and, whatever that looks like. So I think it can be really amazing as well.
No, you're absolutely right. And thank you for sharing your beautiful love story. It's so nice to hear it, and also to see the joy that obviously radiates from you. So that's really beautiful. And yes, it can really be positive as well. I've met wonderful people like yourself, but so many other wonderful people. I have wonderful conversations with wonderful people every week, like I am having right now with you, Bevin, and that's through the internet. But what happened for me was that because of the way people were spamming or selling in the DMs, I was very careful with messaging other people because I didn't want to be perceived as such a person. And it took me a while to craft the message that I now send out to people with whom I connect. And what I often hear back is that, wow, this is one of the most heartfelt personal messages that I've ever gotten, and I would gladly accept your connection. And from there, I invite them into a monthly sort of mini networking session that I have to get to know everybody that I'm connecting with. And everybody that's in those sessions says, oh, this is such a wonderful group. And they all tend to be people that are very like-minded, with a like-minded energy. And even there we have wonderful conversations that eventually lead to other wonderful partnerships, or also often to friendships. So it can definitely be very, very positive. It's just that as HSPs, because we are like a sponge, and as empaths, we are very open. We suck up everybody's energy. We need to really learn how to manage that. Because on the one hand, we need to be sensitive enough to use our senses to feel if someone has good or bad intentions when they connect you. But we also need to watch out for sensory overload, because it's so easy to go down the rabbit hole in Facebook and go from one message to a video to another video, and before you know it, an hour has passed or something like similar. And so I see a lot of highly sensitive people and empaths have like a love-hate relationships with social media. And if I'm being completely honest, I'm one of them, because I don't want to spend hours and hours needing to constantly post in order to attract my people, constantly making content, and being spammy and DMy, and a lot of the strategies out there that are being taught, because that's not who I am. And that's also not who my ideal audience is or wants to be treated. So it's very important that we learn who we are, what works for us, and how to use our natural gifts to sense out the rotten apples and the wonderful opportunities and people and stuff, but also to know how to use social media within your business. And indeed, if you choose to be very active, very politically active, or have outspoken opinions, for instance, for Corona and the vaccines and everything that happened, or any type, or the war with the Ukraine, it doesn't really matter. But when you're very outspoken, and because you want to, because you care, we have such a big heart, so we're very passionate people, and we want the world to be beautiful and to everybody get along, nobody have any arguments, and everybody loves each other, and that will be our ideal dream world. So I can imagine a lot of us feeling the call to be very active, but that is beautiful, but comes with the shadow side of resistance and haters and negativity, and that is something that you need to be prepared for. I agree.
Yeah, the overwhelm. I mean, you're just absolutely speaking my language here with the love hate. It's like I get on to like look at something because it was on, one of my Facebook posts, and then like an hour later, I'm like, I have to get back to what I'm trying to do. I need to work here. So the algorithms are made to keep our attention. And the way they keep our attention, from my understanding, and they've actually been brought in front of legislative bodies to kind of call them out on this, although nothing has really changed in my viewpoint. The way that they get likes and money from advertisers and all that is, the more drama, the better. So they're actually building a society online, and it is a society. Friendships are real on social media. Enemies are real on social media. You see people, tweeting back and forth. It's all real. Like, that's a real thing. But the drama is what gets the clicks and the attention, because we've been conditioned first, in my generation, by the nightly news, and then later it just appeared on the internet, and this is the way it is. And when you talk about, our desire to have a society, a global society, local societies that are working, that are calm, that are peaceful, where people are collaborating, where people are nurtured and taken care of, and they feel safe and they have a sense of community, and we could go through all the things. We could really start with social media. What if there's what if we changed, and what gets clicks and likes are people collaborating and listening deeply to each other and having thoughtful conversations. As a matter of fact, yesterday I had a really thoughtful conversation with a person who I would say is on a different in favor of a different part of the political aisle than I do in the US. And one of the things that was really fascinating about it is that although we had different ideas about policy and what we should be doing, and we voted for different candidates, we grew up almost the same way. And we had the same challenges and the same struggles. And as he and I began to share, we were like, wow, look at all of this. And isn't it strange that like one person kind of went this way and one person then went this way? And we both said, thank you so much for this civil conversation. And we need to be having more of those civil conversations, because that's how we weave a world where we learn how to have constructive conflict rather than just drama, hatred, dividing up into factions and sides and pointing fingers. Because that is super draining for me when all that starts, and I won't lie, I've engaged in it. I did, because there was a lot at stake sometimes. At least I felt like there was a lot at stake. But it's not helpful, and it doesn't feel good. And ramps your nervous system up to the nth degree. And it takes a while to come down from that. So if anyone's been on social media, there can be this, my feed can be beautiful. I'm connected with all these spiritual people, and there's inspirational memes and this, and then something boom pops in and there's a video that's created to make drama. And then I get into the conversation, and then, an hour later, I'm like, and I have to go to bed early, and I'm exhausted, and I can't do the thing I wanted to do. And we really have to watch that.
Yes.
Just like with any other kind of overstimulation in our immediate environment, we have to watch that online as well. I think that's really important, what you brought up.
Yes, definitely. For me, social media can sometimes feel like a black hole, a sucking black hole. And if you're not careful, you're just, woof, you're in it. And then by the time you get out at the other side, it can be a couple of hours later if you're not careful, depending on how well or how much you get into things. When you're in a very lively discussion, then you're not paying attention, and time flies by. And before you know it, indeed, you think, oh, I should have gone to bed at least an hour ago, and I would have liked to do this, this, and this. And now I need to hurry because I don't have enough sleep. And that's another important thing for us. We need to be really mindful of our energy, both of the energy that we spend, but also the energy that we take in, that we let in. And it's one of the main reasons why I don't watch news. I've not watched the news in years. I don't read newspapers. I don't listen to the radio. I don't really want to know. And sometimes you catch something on Facebook, or because you're there for your business, in my case. And then you think, oh, or someone tells you something, but someone telling me is less bad than actually seeing the images on the news. And I've had clients tell me, but then you're not informed, and I need to be informed, right? I need to have an opinion. I need to be able to talk and participate in discussions. And I look at them and I say, why? And then they're like, because I have to. But why? And they don't even really know. It's just this feeling, and that's also a black hole sucking you in, everything to do with news. And oftentimes news is being shown that affects us, so we let the outside world affect our inner world, while we cannot do anything about it. We cannot change it, we cannot make it better, but we are allowing it to affect our inner world, which affects our thoughts, our emotions, what we attract in our life, and then we're not happy with the results. But we're not willing to give up watching the news because we need to be informed. So these are all things that, especially as highly sensitive people, empath people, we need to give serious thought to. We need to be the ones that decide what we surround ourselves with, what energy we take in. And that's why I love my mornings. My mornings are mine. I don't immediately start working, right? I do a variety of things. It could be meditation. I do yoga in the morning. I often go walking for hours and hours in the woods. All of these things just to feed myself, to nourish myself, to make myself feel happy and energized. And then when I feel like, yes, then I'm ready to work with people. And these are things that I didn't know when I started out as an entrepreneur. You didn't know when you started out as an entrepreneur. These are things that you learn along the way, trial and error, basically.
Yeah, I think this is really great because, I worked in it was more like a 6 to 6 job. It wasn't even a 9 to 5. So I worked in the corporate world, and I worked like so many hours a week, and that was the expectation. And I didn't have any time for myself. I'm not a morning person, so being at work was so crazy. And I literally experienced a burnout for 6 months. My body just said, we're done. And it was a huge wake-up call for me. But even when I decided to go full-time in my business, I was still kind of on that schedule, right? I still was like, oh, because society tells us that this is what we need to do, or we need to go to work first thing on Monday morning, or we need to do this. I still didn't realize that I could actually create my own schedule. And I think this is true for anyone, depending on where they are in that journey. how do we carve out this time that is just uniquely for us? And so I call that leadership to self, you know. So leadership begins with self. If we're not caring for ourselves, if we're not putting ourselves first, if we're not being self-focused, it's really hard for us to give to others. And I think the reason, in my experience and working with a lot of clients and my own experience, is we feel like we want to save the world. You know, I did a survey of thousands of empaths, and 92% of these people, of all the people that have taken it, said, if I could take away all the world's pain and suffering, I would do it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if I could click my fingers and it would be gone. And it sounds beautiful. But the fact is we're not responsible for the whole world. There's almost 8 billion people and we are all co-creating.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to decide, like, what part of that is yours to do. Yes. So for me, I care about a lot of causes, right? But I can't donate to all of them. I can't volunteer for all of them. And I can't post about them all on social media. I had to pick the things that are most important to me. So for me, my number one cause is empowering. Well, at first it's all like the health of my life, the well-being of myself. But my second most important cause is, you know, helping empaths live each day with more peace and connection and self-trust and purpose. So when I weigh these different things that I could get involved in or things I could give my energy to, I'm like, is it serving that?
Yes.
You know, and I have a few other minor things that I also work on. And so we have to trust that all these other humans, there's a lot of other humans, there's a lot of sensitive people out there. I think there's like 1.4 billion of us, right? And guaranteed they're all working on something. They're all working on causes. So we don't have to try to do everything. And so when we're out on social media, we look at all these things and, you know, there's this and this and this and all these postings. It happens a lot on YouTube, for example, for me. So many things I could be giving my time and energy to. Sometimes I just go, you know what? I just want to have fun. So show me something fun.
Exactly.
I want to watch a tarot reading. I have this wonderful woman that, you know, she's from Germany and she like styles clothes and she's really funky. And I like her, you know, because we get to enjoy ourselves too. We don't have to be serious all the time. We don't have to be on all the time. And I love like having time when I'm doing nothing, when I'm disconnected from every device that I have. And it's just my cat, myself, my husband. I'm like growing plants, you know, we're
Exactly.
hiking in the mountains. Like we need to disconnect from all of this as well.
Yes.
You know, because it can draw you in endlessly, as you were saying, and it will start to wear on your mental health, your emotional health, and your physical health even.
No, I totally agree. That's why I help people to discover their own user manual and how this works for them, because it's about discovering how it works for you, and how it works for me might be very different than how it works for you. Although we have a lot of similarities because I'm also not a morning person. And I've also carved a lot of time out in my day-to-day life where I'm nothing, or where I have room to do whatever it is that I want, even if that's nothing, or taking care of myself or whatever it is. And I had to learn that the hard way when I started my business. I thought I needed to work 8 to 6 because that was what businesses did, right? Because that's what I saw when I was working for businesses. And then it kept shifting. And then later I started at 10 in the morning, which I already thought was woo. And now I started 2 in the afternoon because I need a lot of time for myself in the beginning, and I also don't work every day anymore, and I've come to a point where I no longer feel guilty about that. So what you're saying is very true, and that's also true for a big part. But another part is that a lot of people think that it's very egoistic to take care of yourself, to put yourself first, to think of yourself first. And somewhere we have learned that thinking of yourself is egoistical, and that being an egoist means that you're a narcissist, or that you're bad, or that's not desirable. And if you then add up our desire to want to take care of people and to usually put other people before our own needs, then it's very easy to understand how we can forget ourselves in the process and not really take care of ourselves. But again, we cannot stress it enough. You cannot pour from an empty cup. So it's not selfish to think of yourself. It's not egoistical to put yourself first. It's mandatory, I would say, because if you do not make sure that you are energetic and enthusiastic, and that you can flow with life, and that even when something unexpected happens, that you can roll with it, and that you can turn it into your thing, and be that example for the people that you want to help, then you are not in a position that you can help other people, and that will definitely make it so that you are either not attracting clients or not the right type of clients. So I think in essence, what we do is very related, because it's both around being your authentic self, being your 100% true authentic self, and also really finding out what that means, and then getting really clear on what you want, what's really important to you, and then how you can turn your life into that version that makes that happen, and make sure that it keeps on happening.
Yeah, I love this part of the conversation because, you know, excuse me, you're really differentiating between this idea of narcissism. And a lot of sensitive people, of course, have had some intersection with this in some part of their life. So we're always like, we never want to be that. And so we go to the other side of the pendulum so far that we neglect our needs in the process to not look egotistical. And so there's a difference between being self-focused and being selfish. So someone who's selfish or narcissistic actually uses people to get what they want, and they don't care. They don't feel any guilt or shame about it. Being self-focused says exactly what you were talking about, that we cannot pour from that empty cup. And we have to look at individually, what is it that we need? What kind of lifestyle, what kind of career are we designing for ourselves that nurtures and uplifts our sensitivity rather than drains it? And doesn't mean we're going to do it perfectly.
Oh, no.
And sensitive lifestyle design never stops, right? Like as we grow, evolve, like you said, first it was like, ooh, 10, I'm being such a rebel. And it felt like that, right? And now you're like, no, I'm not seeing anyone until 2 o'clock. So, you begin to understand what it is that you really need, what your unique rhythms are. And then you flow with it. And I agree with you 100% that intuitive part of ourselves needs room, needs spaciousness, and every day and every week and every month in our life, because we are intuitive. Most of us are very intuitive, and we need to flow. We're creative, intuitive. We don't always do everything linear.
No,
Most of the time we
definitely not.
don't. It's cyclical. It goes here and here and here, and then we see all the synchronicities.
Yes.
And then that sort of downtime, if you will, becomes the thing that inspires you to do the next thing.
Yes.
Or to fulfill your soul purpose. So I love that you're talking about this, that you need to leave time in your day for that spaciousness, for that intuitive flow. It's just amazing.
Thank you. And yes, it definitely is. And it's things that you learn while doing. I didn't have these experiences or these thoughts or even knowledge of the possibilities of when I started out. And it's you're being colored by societal expectations, by how your parents raised you, and in line with how your grandparents raised your parents, and how your great grandparents raised your grandparents. So there are a lot of factors that play a role into how we think, how we feel, how we perceive. And that's why it's so important that we look at all of these things and think, are they true for me? Are these the things that I want to believe? Because just because someone says it is so doesn't make it actually so. I've learned that there is no one truth. There's always someone's personal truth. And my truth can be very different from your truth, and from your truth or your truth. And who's right, right? There is no right. Everybody is right in their own way. So it's about really discovering how the world works for you, or how you want the world to work for you, and then moving towards that.
Yeah. This is so important to understand, is that we don't fit into a box.
No.
I say there is no empath blueprint, there's no, I can't teach you a system and say, here's how you do it. But what I can do is help to encourage sensitive people to question. Just what you were saying there. I've been doing this like this and this routine like that, or getting on social media and losing myself. And at any moment, without any guilt, without any self-flagellation. We can just say, is this helpful for me right now? Do I really want to be doing this? Is there something that would be better? What if I could just stop and then switch gears and do what I want to do and do what feels better for me, right? And we don't have to feel bad about it. We don't have to feel like a failure, like, oh, I really set this goal for myself to not be on social media more than an hour a day or whatever it is. Okay, so what if you did? You were there for 2 hours and then you go, this isn't really working for me. It's an experience. Like your life is a grand experiment and you are the main character and you're learning as you go. And over time, you develop these new habits, right? But we kind of have to rewire our brain and we need to do some conscious thinking about everything that's happening in our life, not just doing it like you said, because your parents, your grandparents, or society or your culture told you that this is how it had to be. And when people start to do this, and I've seen a lot of sensitive people kind of break out of those rote habits, there's a great freedom.
Yes.
And there's so much that's possible for that person in their future. So many possibilities of who they can become and what it is that they can offer and how they can use their gifts in alignment. It's just amazing. I know you see it as well with your clients.
Yes, no, definitely. And I 100% agree with you. But I can also imagine that the people that are watching or listening to us speak think, well, pipe dream, or that they are doubting if it's really possible. And I understand it. I've been there. You've probably been there. So we understand. So you don't have to be believer yet, but be willing to believe that it might possibly, maybe be true. That's the first tiny step that you have to take. And if any of what we've been talking about resonates with you, if you loved it, it would be awesome if you could share that love by liking it or commenting it, or even sharing this episode with the people that you know on social media, because you never know who needs to hear this message right now and who will feel comforted or maybe even have found their person to reach out to after watching this episode. Because both me and Bevin, we are here to help you when you feel that you're ready to move towards this freedom and to start entertaining the possibility of what we were talking about is actually possible and finding out how it could be possible for you. So if that is the case, if you are wanting to talk, my links are always below my videos, but how can people contact you, Bevin? Where can they find you?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Barbara. And you bring up such a great point. It's like, we don't have to have the complete understanding of where we're going. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what'll happen 5 years from now. You don't have to have a 5-year plan. You just have to say, this isn't working for me. I'm going to take a different step. And then you keep doing that every day and things unfold and you follow your intuition and you trust yourself and you just keep building and practicing. It took me 7 years before, to get to where my business is now. It took me 4 years before I could quit my job. So, this is a lifelong process. It's a marathon, not a sprint. So before anyone gets upset that like, oh, I'm not to this place yet, I think that's really important. Yes. I run a community. I co-founded a community with another wonderful empathic soul called the Circle of Empath Leaders. And we are a global online community. And as a matter of fact, at some point, we found having a group on social media was really overwhelming. The energy was like jagged, toxic, all those things. And we moved it into a private platform. So we have our own vibe. We're co-creating our own culture in there. It's a slower pace. It's probably one of the largest libraries of videos, articles, resources, handouts, ebooks on sensitive people. I've been in this field now for about 10 years now. So it's really a compendium of all of the work that I've done and my co-founder has done. And we have live calls a couple times a couple times a month so that we can make these kind of connections. We have these kind of deep dive conversations. We pick a topic and we weave the thread through. And so, if this is something that would be of interest to anyone who's listening, you can reach me at empathleaders.com and take a look at that. We have a free trial, so people can come in, check us out. If it's your vibe, you're welcome to stay. If it's not, we wish you well and hope you find exactly what you're looking for. So yeah, this has been a fantastic conversation for me, Barbara. I'm just so happy to be here. Thank you.
Definitely. I love having you, and we could talk for hours and hours and hours, but I want to be mindful of your time, my time, but also your time, viewer, listener, and you also don't have the entire day to listen to us. So we both hope that we were able to just share some insights with you, give you maybe some gold nuggets, make you feel that you're not alone. Hopefully that you learn something new. And if not, that you just really enjoyed the wonderful flowy energy that we had going on this evening during our talk. And I thank you so much for being here, for listening. I thank you, Bevin, for being here and having this wonderful talk with me. And I look forward to the next time that I get to inspire you all, listeners and viewers, with the next episode. But for now, I wish you an amazing rest of your day and have fun.